Hey everyone, Joshua Kirk here with you once again, and now it's time for that annual mid-year video where I tell you guys about my favorite albums of the year so far, and it just so happens to be for this year, the year of our Lord, 2023, which so far I found to be a pretty solid year for music. Certainly not quite as stacked as 2022, and I will say that some genres have been a little bit stronger than others this year, but overall I have enjoyed a lot of stuff I've heard this year, and the 15 albums I'm talking about in here just so happen to be like, in my opinion, the best of the best of what I've heard this year. So without further ado, we're going to get right to my picks, which, keep in mind, these are in no particular order. This is not a ranked list or anything. These are just 15 albums I've been really digging this year and that I highly recommend. So to kick things off, we have Shame and their new album, Food for Worms, which I find to be probably their best crop of songs to date. I think this is just such a well put together post-punk and indie rock album that has passionate performances, great production and songwriting, and the band most certainly wasn't lying when they said this album was meant to capture the energy of their live show, because I think it really shows to amazing effect on this album, and check it out. It definitely rules. Next is so far what I consider to be my favorite album of the year so far, and it might not surprise you that it ended up being this one. And I got the vinyl right behind me. Of course, I'm talking about boygenius with The Record, which I really found to be just a fantastic culmination of the careers of Julian Baker, Phoebe Bridgers, and Lucy Dacus. This album just has such impeccable songwriting, and the chemistry they have as vocalists on here is pretty strong too. Quality production and sequencing on the record too, and yeah, I do think this is easily one of the best things that they have ever been involved in, and it makes total sense that this is like the most critical acclaim and success that the supergroup has received, because they are really deserving of it, and this record just absolutely proves it in spades. Next, we have the new King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard album, PetroDragonic Apocalypse, which I really feel like is probably the most I've been blown away by a King Gizzard album since 2017, although over the years I've been generally a fan of them, and I've appreciated how prolific and kind of far-reaching they are in terms of all the different sounds they've done. But I'm really happy to hear them sort of go back to their thrash metal side on this record, because the riffs are great, the performances are savage, the storytelling is excellent, and just the energy they bring on here. This album is so in your face, throttling, and somewhat political in terms of the lyrics, and yeah, just it may even be my favorite King Gizzard album to date. This is just easily the most no bullshit thing I think they've done in their discography. So yeah, listen to this record. It kicks ass. Pretty strong contender for my favorite rap album so far this year has got to be McKinley Dixon with Beloved Paradise Jazz, which McKinley really outdid himself on this record, which is quite a feat, because this record is shorter than his last album by quite a bit, but yet it's somehow even more lush, intricate, and in terms of the songwriting, it is just so mature, and there's a lot of emotional depth really going into this record, and McKinley just brings so much personality with his rapping performances on here. Yeah, this record is really quite an achievement for rap this year, and I'll admit rap's been kind of underwhelming in my opinion this year, but it definitely had a few pretty obvious standouts, and this just so happens to be like at the top for me. One of the most out there rock albums I think I've listened to this year, and I have that album in front of me too, Squid with Monolith. Really trying to describe this album in like simple terms would really be doing it a disservice, because this is just some of the most forward-thinking and unique post-punk or experimental rock that I've heard this year, and I don't even think it's fair to like just simply call them a post-punk band, because it definitely is at the what they are at the core, but just yeah, there's so much more going on with this record, and yeah, give it a listen, because it really is very it truly is unlike any other album I've listened to this year. But one of the strongest mainstream rock records that I think I've listened to this year has got to be Foo Fighters with "But Here We Are," which is definitely hands down their best album in more than a decade, and a pretty emotionally intense record, given all the loss going on like while the band was making this album. But like this record just contains some of them, just some really passionate songwriting and singing performances from Mr. Dave Grohl. The production and like the instrumentation is rockin' and just sounds amazing. And yeah, it just like the fact that the Foos, through all the like trauma they were dealing with last year, they somehow managed to come out on the other side with this just very exciting and cathartic and visceral little hard rock record that even if you're not a huge Foos fan, I would highly recommend you give this album a listen, because it might fuel some sort of strong emotional response for you. Next, we have one of the most experimental and kind of difficult to dissect albums I've listened to this year, and that is Algiers with Shook. This album may not be the most concise record you're going to hear, and I admit it did take time for this record to really come together for me, but it was so worth putting all the work though, because I think the production is fantastic. The messaging and the songwriting is as sharp as ever, this record is one of those albums that may not communicate its message all that clearly at first, but like the more time I've spent with it, the more I just found this record to be kind of about just being who you really are, regardless of what people think or whatever online discourse it might stir up. This record definitely is really something to behold, and I highly recommend it, and please take your time with it, because it really is such a fascinating record to dive into. Next is probably my favorite pop album of the year so far, and that is Jessie Ware with That Feels Good. Just some of the best production I've heard on any album this year, and just the hooks and the singing performances. Jessie just brings so much personality on this album, and if you're looking for an album that kind of pays homage to the golden age of disco and dance music, and does it in a way that feels very understanding of the roots that it's drawing from, you're going to love this record, and it's probably going to make you feel good the way it made me feel good. But one of the most buzzed about underground rock releases of the year is likely the new Parannoul album, After the Magic. I never listened to Parannoul before this album, even though I was well aware of their hype, dating all the way back to 2021, but man, right from the first listen, I was blown away. Like, I love how this record, even though it clearly sounds very lo-fi in terms of the way it's recorded and the kind of, in a way, overblown mixes, but like, man, just the walls of instrumentation and noise all over this album are just so, like, it's lush, it is spellbinding. There couldn't have been a better name for this record because it truly is a very beautiful, magical little shoegaze and dream pop album. And yeah, do give it a listen. It's great. Next, we have a singer-songwriter that I think deserves a little more credit than what he's currently getting in 2023, and that is Brian Dunne with Loser on the Ropes, which, if you're looking for a kind of Americana, heartland rock sounding kind of album that is reminiscent of the war on drugs, or even like my personal favorite era of Bruce Springsteen's career, that his 80s run, but done with kind of an authentically New York perspective. I think you're going to really enjoy what's going on this record. Just the sonics and the production are really solid. And Brian singing on here is great, and also a lot of the hooks on this album are very strong too. So yeah, it's probably the most underrated, overlooked album I'm talking about on here, but yeah, you should absolutely dig this one up because it's awesome. Next, we have an album that I feel like people have been waiting for a few years for, and boy, was it absolutely worth the wait. That is 100 gecs with 10,000 gecs. Really loving how the band kind of touches on various strains of rock on here, and some strains of rock that I feel like are definitely not always taken all that seriously, be it some pop punk or new metal or ska. And yeah, this record is just packed full of just forward thinking, funny, and very in a way kind of smart little bops. And yeah, not really much more I could say other than that. I mean, you've probably heard a lot of people spill their guts on 100 gecs online already, and yeah, this record is kind of interesting in how this is the most critical acclaim that they've received in their career, and just to see them progress from a group that was not taken all that seriously when they first broke out, to like one of the most beloved duos working in the hyperpop vein right now. And so there you go. All hail 100 gecs. The new Wednesday record, though, Ratsaw God, is another record that's been getting a lot of buzz this year, especially over in the indie press, and for good reason. I think this album just contains like some of the most like crushing sort of lo-fi noise rock that I've heard on a lot of indie records this year, but also paired with this kind of southern twang, with the country influences, and the lyrics being these kind of like detailed and sometimes grotesque kind of reflections on living in a small town in Southern America. Like, it really does have a kind of authentically Southern perspective from it, and I'm totally a sucker for this kind of shit that is kind of in that Drive-By Truckers vein a little bit. Like, I mean, they're even name dropped in one of the lyrics on this album, and I think this record is worth of all the hype it's received, because the walls of distortion are killer, and just some of the most unique songwriting that any indie rock record has a showcase this year. So yeah, check it out. It rules. Next, we have the new Yves Tumor record, Praise the Lord Who Chews, but which does not consume, or simply hop between worlds. I'm impressed that long album title rolled off the tongue so effortlessly, but this record's great. I definitely feel like this is such a consistent and very unique sounding little record that has some post-punk in there, but also some glam rock, some psychedelic rock. Like, it manages to kind of pay homage to sounds of the past, but still feeling very futuristic. Like, if you're looking for some Bowie-esque stuff, but with a bit more of a goth twist, you're probably gonna really enjoy this record. And really, in my opinion, I am messing with it a little bit more than his last album, which was definitely good, and I understood why so many people were loving it, but I kind of felt like the record did kind of fall apart a little near the end, and yeah, it didn't exactly have, the best structure out there. So this record to me feels more like fully fleshed out songs, and yeah, I'm definitely all for it, because I think Yves Tumor is really coming through with just some of the most, interesting and forward-thinking pop or rock music that the year has had to offer. Next, we have the rap album this year that a lot of critics seem to be rallying around this year, and I think deservedly so. That would be Billy Woods and Kenny Segal with Maps, which is my only other rap pick I'm talking about on here. But yeah, I was really looking forward to this album because Billy's just been on a roll lately with the stuff he's been putting out between Hiding Places, the last record he did with Kenny, the last Arm& Hammer album, and especially Ethiopes last year, which I still think is slightly better than this album, but still, like, Kenny's production is intricate and versatile, and soundtracks Billy's very thoughtful ruminations on touring life post-COVID very well. It definitely feels a little more direct than we've come to expect from Billy, but still, like, the bars are still very thoughtful and poetic, and the features are great as well. Yeah, Billy's really just coming through with a record that certainly is one of his more accessible releases, but definitely definitely among some of his best. And while it may not be my personal favorite of his, I still think he remains one of the most interesting MCs out there, and yeah, he should be in the GOATS conversation, I think, by now, because I think what he's doing really is something to behold. Finally, I'm going to be talking about one of the most surprisingly great electronic records of the year, and that is Skrillex with Quest for Fire. The king of dubstep returns, actually, with 2 albums he put out this year, and this just so happens to be one of them. Wow, this record, I think, is just packed with a lot of very fun bangers, but also some great refinement and intricacy, because this record definitely has some dubstep and EDM in there, but also more house influences, more ambient sounds. There's even a bit of cross-cultural fusion going on the track Xena, and I think it is absolutely killer. And yeah, I just think this record flows really well. I think the way the features on here are either recorded live, while others are just kind of sampled in the beat. And yeah, I just think this is an amazing record that even people that may not have taken Skrillex all that seriously when he first peaked in the early 2010s could look at this album and be like, he is an objectively good dance and electronic producer, because I really do feel like that he is, and this record definitely rules, and was one of my most played albums of this year, because I just have so much fun listening to it, and I keep finding little details here and there that I didn't quite find on the listen before. And I think that about does it for my favorite albums of 2023 so far. Been an incredible year. Please listen to the albums that I have displayed right here, like boygenius, Foo Fighters, Yves Tumor, and Squid, and also listen to the other 11 albums that I mentioned if you have not yet. I'd love to hear what your favorite albums of the year are in the comments as well. Do you agree with any of my picks? Are there albums I didn't mention here that you think deserve more of a shine? Let me know what those are. I'm just, I'm very happy to share these records with you. This is Joshua Kirk, signing off.